Nebraska is the most interesting team in college football. One that everyone is kind of waiting around to see what happens. This is true about Colorado as well, who they play in their second game of the season. Here's why Nebraska is the most interesting team in college football. Matt Rhule came in last year, inherited a team that just had I border on calling it a sickness to lose one possession games. I mean, there is no team, there is no fan base that has remained as loyal as Nebraska whilst having their hearts ripped from their chests and served to them on a platter week after week after week over the last several seasons. It's truly astonishing, and Matt Rhule has to try and fix that. We'll talk about the quarterback situation later because that's integral to what he's going to do as well. But the University of Nebraska has had a propensity to lose those sorts of games. Do you know why they lost them last year? They couldn't score. They could not score. Do you know what Nebraska's record was last year? If I just ask you off the top of your head, hey, what was Nebraska's record last season? What would you say? Well, they weren't any good. They didn't make a bowl game. True. How many games did they miss a bowl game by? Oh, that's right. One. By one game. They went 5-7 in Matt Rhule's first year. Part of the reason they're the most interesting team in college football is because Matt Rhule's 2 stints in college football as a head coach previously at Temple and Baylor have seen year 2 be what you might call a pop season. Everything has popped like popcorn. You put the kernels into the microwave, and then you press the popcorn button on the microwave, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and pop! You see that first kernel pop, and then all of a sudden, you start to get excited because you're like, oh, more kernels are going to pop. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. And suddenly, you're waiting for that wonderful, beautiful, steaming hot, buttery bag of delicious popcorn, which I might be heating up after I record this show. So Matt Rhule at Temple and Baylor, his year 2 projections, or rather progressions in his win total goes something like this: +4 and +6. That didn't happen in the NFL. Guess what? I don't care. He's coaching college football, not the NFL. And you know something that he's got at Nebraska that I just want to take a moment to shout out Husker fans for? He's got relentless support. That is one of the best fan bases in all of college football because they continue to show up for a program that has just gone full on Wanda Maximoff, taking the metal heart out of Ultron in Avengers Age of Ultron. They're just sucking it right out. That's after her brother dies and she's filled with vengeance. And she says, do you know what it felt like? And then she takes it out and then she's got it in her hand with her magic. And she says, it felt like that. That's how Nebraska fans have felt. They just keep showing up out there. And I, for one, salute them for doing so. They show up for volleyball, too. You ever seen those crowds? If you build it, they will come, is the old expression. At Nebraska, it's already built. They're already coming to the games. You just need to win to give them something that makes it worthwhile. And if Nebraska can right these one possession wrongs and follow the trajectory that Matt Rhule's had at his previous 2 programs, that's going to be quite the thing to watch in the Big Ten. Now, their schedule in the Big Ten is not exactly a cakewalk. It is also not, however, the hardest thing I've ever seen. Impossible, unworkable, not doable. Because for Nebraska, they've got a great defensive staff. I mean, they quietly had one of the best defenses in college football last year. 18.25 is the number, points per game allowed. Problem is they scored about 18 points per game. Well, if you don't need to go Lincoln Riley here and score 30, 35, 40 points a game. Can you just score like 25 a game? Can you just score like 20, 24 points a game maybe? That would take Nebraska from 5-7 to what exactly? I mean, it'd be at least 7 wins. Have to imagine maybe even in the 8 or 9 range. But if Matt Rhule in his 2 stints is averaging 5 more wins than his previous year, does that make Nebraska automatically poised for a 10-win season? You tell me. You tell me whether or not that statistical trajectory will play out here at Nebraska. You know one thing I know about being the head coach of the Cornhuskers? You have at least equal, if not superior, facilities and quality of job and access to what you need to win as you have at Baylor and Temple. Those are the spots that he's turned around. Dave Aranda right now is learning just how tough it is. You know who he's brought in? Gary Patterson, TCU legend, because he needs some help there in Waco, Texas. And so when you look at what Matt Rhule has done at places in which it is clearly not easy to sustain winning, can he do it in Nebraska? Of course he can. He's not going to be suffering to try and, get fans to show up to give him a home field advantage. He's going to have that. They just have to put the results on the field on the offensive side of the ball, and defensively, just run it back. Just run it back with what they did a season ago. Now, where they can run into hurdles here is that their talent acquisition has been just okay. But a quick note on their schedule, which has got some tough games, but also plenty of winnable games. Do you know where their first 4 games are played in 2024? Each of their first 4? That would be in Lincoln, Nebraska at Memorial Stadium, UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois. Then they finally go on the road to Purdue. Are you expecting a lot from Purdue next year? I'm not. Then they come back home because 1 week away from home is far too many. They take on Rutgers. Then they go at Indiana. First-year head coach, transition. Then they go at Ohio State. All right, that's going to be a really tough game. Then they host UCLA that is, let's just say, in a little bit of shambles right now because Chip Kelly doesn't really want to be there, are what the indications are. Then they go at USC. That's a tough game. Wisconsin at home and at Iowa. Tell me, hearing that schedule there, how many guaranteed losses do you see there for Nebraska? How many losses do you look at on paper and go, I cannot see a world in which I would pick them to win that game because I don't see a world in which they win that game? Ohio State, and by the way, I'm in the USC department here, and that's it. Ohio State and USC on the road, I can't see them winning either of those games, primarily because their quarterback situation isn't totally clear right now. So they flipped Dylan Raiola. He was going to Georgia, it was done, and then all of a sudden he's in Nebraska. Well, if he ends up being the starting quarterback, that could be one of the most fascinating quarterback battles to watch once spring football gets underway and we start hearing intel about this, that, and the other thing there. When you have the idea in your mind that a true freshman is your best option at quarterback, that does not mean things are destined to fail or not work out. It also does not mean you are guaranteed success, because true freshmen can have a very high ceiling, like Trevor Lawrence. They can have a very low floor, like Dante Moore. He eventually got benched at UCLA. He's now going to be the backup at Oregon to try and start in 2025. So for Dylan Raiola, if he's the starting quarterback there, you know what the perfect situation is? For your first 4 college games to all be played at home. You couldn't dial it up any better. And 5 of your first 6, this is their schedule. UTEP, home. Colorado, home. Not an easy game. Colorado will be tough. Northern Iowa, home. Okay, that's 2 wins in your first 3 games. Illinois at home. Don't sleep on that one. I'm not sleeping on the Illini here. But again, 4 in a row at home. Then at Purdue. And then home against Rutgers before they go at Indiana. That's the first half of their schedule. And if you told me right now, Nebraska wins 5 of those games, I'd 100% believe you. I don't think they're destined to win 6. I think that's a year 3 kind of move for Matt Rhule. But if they start 4-2 or 5-1, suddenly that could be a pretty confident bunch. I don't think they go into Columbus and beat Ohio State, but they don't have to go west and play Oregon. They got to go west and play USC. That's tough, but UCLA comes to them, and UCLA, not a team I feel great about right now. I'd like Nebraska in that game. Favorable schedule, Matt Rhule in year 2, Dylan Raiola. Nebraska is the most interesting team in college football. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.